This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what we're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Welcome to another edition of Lembit Opik Live, a short contribution today from me. Why? Because a very important development has occurred this week, if you're watching it live, in terms of one of the most frustrating aspects of the British political system at the moment. You may be aware of a place called the Bell Hotel. Regular viewers will be. We've discussed it many times here on Unprecedented TV. The circumstances are very simple. A hotel in a place called Epping, which is just outside London, has been the focus of many demonstrations. These demonstrations have been primarily related to the frustrations that local people have felt about alleged sex offences by, let's call it out for what it is, illegal immigrants who have come into this country claiming asylum. And as a result of this, the local authority felt forced to take legal action against this particular hotel. They said on a technical matter that the planning had been violated, planning consent wasn't right for housing these illegal immigrants. Well, eventually, the court agreed and has forced the local authority to shut it down. That is, by many views, regarded as a great victory for the local people. Why? Because there are documented cases of some of these illegal immigrants who claim to be asylum seekers taking photographs through railings of young children in a primary school. Also, as I said, a number of these individuals have been in court for sexual offences, once again, against children. Why? Why are they so interested in children? And as a result of this, there has been a bit of a standoff there, really, between the local people and the, well, essentially the police and counter-demonstrators who rather mysteriously have been bussed in by the police. Now, what does all this mean? It means that that hotel has to shut as one of the 210 hotels in the country, which has been housing these migrants. Now, what's interesting about this is it's a landmark case. Dan Jarvis, the Labour minister who has provoked me to make this personal set of observations today, Labour Minister for Security, whatever that means, was unable to say where these migrants would go. What's going to happen to these people who have been behaving in such a way? He simply said that they were going to do something about it, essentially. Now, let's remember we've got a prime minister who's more than happy to run around all over the world and talk about our security, to discuss the fact that we need to be supporting Vladimir Zelensky, who is the professional clown in charge of Ukraine and in charge of losing a war many, many miles from here, but who doesn't seem that concerned about the kind of issues which have been raised on the streets in Epping. So Dan Jarvis, one of our ministers, was asked repeatedly on the state-sponsored British television channel, where will these migrants be put? And he couldn't answer it. He was unable to answer it. He couldn't tell us where these migrants, including the ones who have been allegedly messing with children in a sexual way, where they would be living from now on. There's actually a very simple one-word answer to the question, which Dan Jarvis didn't know. The answer is we should send them home. There are actually three options, if we're very precise about it. The first option is take them back to Calais, where they started, coming across on migrant boats. The second option is we put them all on an island somewhere contained so that they can't run around on our streets when we don't know who they are. The third option is they tell us their nationality and they're returned, repatriated to those countries. And those countries then have to look after these individuals. But Dan Jarvis couldn't do any of that. He simply said, well, yes, we're going to get rid of the migrant hotels by 2029. That's when probably the next general election will be. That was wholly unsatisfactory, but it's hardly surprising because we're living in a country now where the foreign secretary is barely visible. David Lammy seems to have vanished off the face of the media planet. And he seems once again more satisfied talking about foreign matters which don't pertain to the migrant crisis. So add all that together, and what we see is two things. A government in turmoil, more than that, in drift. A government that doesn't understand how perhaps you feel in terms of having a hotel full of unclassified, unidentified, illegal immigrants right on your doorstep. At the same time as being focused on wars that can't be won against one of the mightiest military endeavors and organizations on the planet, namely the Russian army. Let me share my view. Let me, for once, take the opportunity to tell you what I think is happening in this country. The government doesn't understand why you might be angry about the migrant crisis. I understand it. I'm a parent. I would not want a hotel full of unidentified asylum seekers, people who claim they're here because they're not safe in their own country, right next to where my children go to school. I don't want to be in a situation where these people are given expensive accommodation, mobile phones, food, and apparently an indefinite leave to stay and to roam around on our streets when we don't know who they are. Fundamentally, I don't want to be in a country which is a soft touch for immigration. My parents were migrants. They came here as children following the terrible upheavals of World War II. But I was always taught by them, I was born in Northern Ireland, but I was taught by them to celebrate my heritage, but respect the values and the nature of the country that has accepted my parents as residents. I was taught English as a second language, would you believe? But I was always taught to be part of the society which had taken my parents in. Now, that doesn't seem to be happening here. My parents didn't come across on a rubber boat. My parents did not enter this country illegally. My parents didn't throw their documents in the sea. And that's the big problem. Keir Starmer himself, for reasons I haven't got time to explain right now, is one of the lawyers who seemed to force this country into being super generous to illegal migrants. And as a result, we've created a vacuum, a suction that brings these migrants across an entire continent and 20 miles of water to get here. Now, a word about the definitions. Are we calling them migrants, asylum seekers, or what they are? Illegal immigrants who set foot on the shores of Britain and their first action is to break the law. If you come in through an airport, you have to show your passport. You have to queue. You have to prove who you are. But apparently, if you come in on a rubber boat, you can throw all your documents in the sea and the government will simply take you for your word, your say-so, and house you potentially for years while they ineffectively semi-process your claim that you're here as an asylum seeker. Perhaps because you say that you weren't safe in your own country. Now, just one absolutely central point here. If you claim to be an asylum seeker, you have to tell us where you're from and who you are. Because otherwise, how can we know if you're in danger in your home country? If you tell us you're from Eritrea, prove it. And show us what the peril you've run away from actually is. If we don't know where you come from, if you refuse to tell us your identity and your nationality, then you're a liar and you don't deserve to stay here. And at the very least, you should be returned to Calais or contained on an island where you can't roam freely amongst the British public. On the other hand, if you do tell us all of that, then we can take you back because you probably arrived here without permission and your first action in this country was to break the law. But in no circumstance can I see it acceptable that we give you some kind of accommodation when you didn't respect the first law of arrival, identifying yourself, following the proper procedures, and obeying the British law. It's a bad start if you turn up in a country and nobody knows who you really are. One more point. The government says that it's going to crack down hard on immigrants who come into this country who, for example, are sex offenders or have committed major crimes in their home country. How do we know what they did if we don't know who they are? It's logically ridiculous for them to say that when there's such a soft touch in terms of means of arrival and what these people have actually done. Let's add all of that up in this short contribution today. We have a migrant crisis in this country. And that's not racist. It's a fact. We have a government that promised to smash the illegal trafficking gangs and has completely failed to do so. We have a security minister, Dan Jarvis, who was unable to tell us where these illegal immigrants in a hotel in Epping will be rehoused. He doesn't seem to understand that the concern isn't where they're housed. The concern is that they're here at all. And finally, we have streets of Britain where parents and others are quite reasonably scared that these unknown, unidentified illegal immigrants are wandering around with no restriction, carrying on as if they've got the right to be here in the first place. I don't think we're in a good place, my friends, when it comes to migration policy. I don't think the current Labour government has kept any of their promises when it comes to illegal immigration, one of the most vexing and provocative issues in British politics today. And I don't think Labour can fix it because they haven't got the right understanding. And I'm sorry to say, Dan Jarvis, who I used to respect before I saw his recent interview, is no better than Keir Starmer and the others who simply don't seem to get it. Sadly, Keir Starmer seems more desperate to convince us that he's an international politician than that he's able to run this country, hanging around with Donald Trump, flying over there at the drop of a hat because his friend, the clown Volodymyr Zelensky, was summoned to get his instructions in Washington. Charity begins at home, and we need a prime minister who's focused on home. We have neither of those things going on at the moment, I'm sorry to say. We've got probably 4 more years of the current government. The best they've come up with recently is 1 in, 1 out. In other words, if a migrant comes over the channel, then apparently we get rid of them and swap them for some migrant who is a genuine asylum seeker. The irony of this is that if 100,000 people come across in small boats and we want to get rid of 100,000, we have to replace them with 100,000 other asylum seekers who apparently are legitimate. That's the deal apparently we've done with France. If you think about it, it means that Keir Starmer has handed over migration policy to the illegal people traffickers. The more they bring in, the more legal asylum seekers we have to bring in as we swap them out. Well, it just isn't realistic. And add to that the circumstantial evidence that these rubber boats are being taken back to France to bring more people over. And you realize the size of the problem. We shouldn't be taking the boats back to France. We should be taking the people who are in the boats back to France or to their country of origin. I wonder if my humble appeal here on Unprecedented TV will be heard by those people who serve us. They're not our leaders, they're our servants. Let's remember that, our servants in Parliament. I doubt it. I think that the current government hasn't got the intellectual or moral capacity to put right what successive governments have put wrong. It's possible that another party or other parties may rise and take over, but that won't be for 4 years. In the meantime, we can expect thousands of migrants to cross the ocean because, well, Keir Starmer thinks he can defend 1,400 miles of coast of border in Ukraine. He can't even defend 20 miles of coastline. Where's the Dunkirk spirit when you want to stop an invasion once again? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a dark time for Britain, an expensive time. I'm told that we spend £4 million a day on the hotels housing 32,000 migrants. I suspect it's a lot more than that. But the biggest cost is not in money. It's in the damage this is doing to public faith, local confidence, and the right of parents to not have their children photographed by illegal migrants who stand at the railings, snapping small children on their phones, and phones that we may actually be sponsoring for these people. I don't want to be too negative about it because things can be done, but I'm very negative about a government that can't even tell us where the migrants who are being evicted from the Bell Hotel in Epping will be moved to. Let's remember that if you're a rapist in a hotel, you're still a rapist in an apartment. So I hope that my humble appeal to you will not go missed. Please write to your Member of Parliament. Ask them what they intend to do to make our streets safe, and ask them what they intend to do and say in Parliament about illegal immigrants who throw their papers in the water and expect us to take them here on trust. From my point of view, and I'll be saying this to my MP, if your first act when you arrive in Britain is to break the law by walking into this country without permission, then you've got no asylum rights, because you've shown that you don't respect the values of this country. However bad it may have been where you came from, we can't know that you would be a good citizen if you didn't care about coming here the right way. Thanks very much for listening. It's a fairly heavy discussion, but these are developing and very important stories across the land. You'll see other stories as well, and a happier thing to say, Full Throttle, which is one of my favorite programs that we're putting together, will be on soon. And we've got another presenter, Debbie Evans, who's going to be joining us, who wants to reclaim the spirit of Britishness here on Unprecedented TV. Always happy to hear what you think as well. Do share your views on X. And more than anything, you don't have to agree with me. You just have to believe in free speech. If you concur with the idea that we have to have an open debate on these things instead of being relentlessly shut down by a government that seems to fear freedom of expression, then perhaps Unprecedented TV is the right place for you. Do share, do like, and more than anything, do enjoy. And Basil Valentine, once again, will be with us as well. It's great to see him back on air on Unprecedented TV. I'm Lembit Opik. This is Unprecedented TV, the home of free speech. Have a good day.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got to work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages,